I teach Beatle guitar classes and Beatle ensembles and pop rock songwriting guitar classes and a lot of guitar lessons, and you know I'm in the guitar department, so that's that thing. Let's talk about rhythm for a minute. A lot of times when we're strumming, again, we think we have to strum all 6 strings, but we don't. You know, you can emphasize, see you later, low strings and high strings, and get like a wah-wah effect. So basically, I'm just playing 16ths. They sound different if I'm doing this or this. And I was kind of a weird student in that way anyway, because I liked all those string skipping exercises. I mean, those types of things, and being a performance major and having to play classical pieces with a pick, really made my right hand funky. It was good, you know, because I always took what I wanted from everything and did with it what I wanted, and that's what you have to do. You know, it's not everything is going to give you goosebumps, and not everything is going to seem like something you can use, but in all these millions of subjects and all these different teachers and point of views that you're getting, you're somehow just getting better as a musician, and you're really just studying one subject, music. But they make it seem like there's a million things for you to work on, you know? And I liked that those things could be used in other places. So I have a good idea where things are. If I'm playing a chord, I don't have to just play the whole chord. I can get little, move things around that chord and find other stuff. And I can do picking fingers, which is a different sound, or just strumming, as you know, and then just finger picking, which is really awesome too. So I like doing all those things to break up the variety of the types of things that I do to accompany myself. And that there's a couple of muting going on this side and this side as well. Because if I just do, you're not going to hear that. Part of it is releasing it here. And if you ever see that written, it looks like a comma. It's the same thing woodwind players use for breath. Take a breath here. little notation for breath marks. So I could stay here pretty consistently, just by releasing it, get that pulse, which you probably already do naturally. It's not something you're supposed to hear about and have to work on necessarily, but if you're wondering how that happens, you can also then mute it here, so they're not ringing fully. And that helps it sort of bounce around. And then a lot of things, sometimes since I did a lot of shows by myself growing up, I used to walk into restaurants and just convince them they needed to hire me and pay me a few $100s a night instead of have their live music pumped in, or I mean their piped in recorded music, whatever. And they would. And I always loved when they get up and dance to just me, you know? That's really cool. So I learned how to imagine that there was a drummer with me all the time and get like an internal clock happening and have that come through the tunes I played. And I noticed that a lot of times I would do I would sort of emphasize a 2 and 4 thing. And that's okay if you're playing by yourself, but if you start playing with a drummer and you think you're going to get that slap on 2 and 4 happening louder than the snare drum, you'd probably end up in a pulp on this side, you know, because, you know, you're never going to be louder than a snare drum. So you almost have to give it up at that point, because the drums will take care of it. And I've actually had my drummer and bass player say to me sometimes when I start to show them a new song, well, what do you want us to play? Because you're like doing the rhythm and you're doing a bass line. And that's like the damage that can happen to you from being a performance major. You can do things that sound like 2 and 3 guitar players at once, and then the band's going, well, what do you want us to do? But I like to think of it sometimes as almost like a piano part. And I'm sure they don't say to Elton John, "Hey, make your piano part a little simpler," you know, or even Tori Amos, you know, like, or you know, any of those great piano players that come up with really nice things and then need to have a band behind it as well. So I always just make them find something that works with me. Like, the song is the nucleus, and this part came as I was writing the song, so I want to keep it, whatever part it was. And you've got to find something that fits it, you know, like a James Taylor thing. Somehow get something around it that works with it. I'm not going to necessarily change the part that I just wrote. Anybody play piano? Okay, cool, one guy. I don't really play it. I wrote one song on piano once and it was all in the Black Keys. But you can, if you're feeling like you actually play or conceive things and see things better on piano, think in terms of your right hand being the first 3 strings of a piano. First top 3 strings of the guitar is your right hand of the piano, and the bottom 3 strings are your left hand. So you can move things around, and again, like more of a counterpoint situation, instead of just always going for chords that you know, just put your fingers anywhere. And I have one instrumental where the whole harmony for the entire song is just these 2 notes. B flat and E flat for the whole thing. And you know, with 2 notes, you really can't even name the chord. Once in a while, I hit a bass note that fits, that calls it a triad. But most of the time, you know, it's just 2 notes just hanging there. And then I put a melody guitar above it with volume swells. So, you know, I had this sort of... No matter how old you get, you still drop your pick. That kind of a sound on the melody. So the first part was just, and it was just from moving stuff around. Sometimes you work on something and you go, that doesn't sound like anything. But then as you start to layer it and put on some ambient sounds and add some reverbs and things like that, you realize that you're creating you know, like a landscape of things that actually works. That it turns out to be a nice instrumental. And that's interesting to know, you know, which songs should I leave instrumental and which ones should I write words for, you know. I like when you don't know yet, like you just met the song, so you don't really know much about it yet. But did you ever find that like the song knows itself, like what its bass line should be, what the drum part should be, and what, you know, if it should have the melody or should, you know, have a lyric or should, you know, it's got all that stuff sort of built into it as you discover it. And has anybody ever told you, like as songwriters, sometimes not to play all the parts to your own records, to try to get more musicians involved? And, you know, I did spend a lot of years, like, working with different drummers and different bass players, and they're wonderful players and wonderful musicians and great people, but not everybody can stick around in the same area for that long. So after you go through 7 or 8 bass players and drummers, you just think, you know, and sometimes the conversations you have take so long to explain, like, the pulse of the tune, where the groove is. You know, they seem to, I find that drummers, especially who are very studied, they know like one groove for each type of style, you know, like they'll play a bossa, they'll play a swing, they'll play a rock, they'll play a shuffle, they'll play a soft rock, you know, all those different things, but not necessarily that stuff in one genre or another fits my tunes. I want someone to come up with a part for my song, you know, and sometimes what I'm getting at is that it's better for you if you can play drums to get an idea for yourself, or to even program it or find a loop that you like and mess with it so that it fits your tune, but give somebody something in the ballpark of what you're looking for, or actually trust yourself and use your own instincts on that and actually use what you come up with.